Bill Self is doing one of the best coaching jobs of his Hall of Fame career. Now, that is a line that a lot of people may say is easy to use for a Hall of Fame head coach, but it's the utmost truth. I did not see this coming with Kansas. And if you've listened to the show, if you follow me, you know I didn't see it coming with Kansas. Not at all. I looked at Kansas as a team that was coming off losses of 10 or more in back-to-back seasons. I was looking at a Kansas team that had not been to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament since it won a national championship in 2022. I was looking at a Kansas team, in my opinion, that was getting left behind by the new wave of the Big 12 with Houston, Arizona, etc. I didn't think the supporting cast for Kansas was ready to display what it has displayed the last couple of weeks. I did the first four a couple of years ago. Melvin Council was at Wagner before going to St. Bonaventure, then Kansas. Bryson Tiller did not have tangible college production entering this season. Trey White, who has been an unsung piece and a revelation as a utility player for Kansas, played for 3 schools in the past 3 years. He's now played in 4 schools in 4 years. And look, that's the climate. Good for him. But still, when you don't have any continuity, and this is something that I think we need to look at that's amazing, the only active player in Kansas's program right now that was a part of things last year is Flory Badunga. This is not a run that's based on continuity. It is a run based on great coaching and making the pieces fit when Kansas has had not one, but 2 teams this season, with Darren Peterson and without Darren Peterson. Now, here's the thing. It is a maddening exercise to continue to think about what's going to happen with Darren Peterson moving forward because we don't know and we have no idea. He had the flu the other night against Arizona, said he couldn't go, whatever. I'm just telling you this. The ceiling for Kansas is at its highest when Darren Peterson is on the floor because long-term, he has the highest ceiling out of any player in college basketball. And he can do things that nobody else can do in college basketball. And if you don't believe me, look at the shots that he hit a little over a week ago in the road win at Texas Tech. It looked like Kobe Bryant on the first 3 that tied the game. And the second 3 obviously had a high degree of difficulty, but not like the first. But with that said, because Bill Self is doing one of the best coaching jobs of his career, and because Bill Self has molded this team to mirror its head coach, we now have Kansas without its star owning wins over Tennessee and on Monday night over Arizona. Kansas is the only team this season to beat Arizona, and it came without the player that has the highest ceiling in the sport. Remember, it's not anarchy. It's just college basketball. Kansas has won 8 in a row. It will play at Iowa State on Saturday. And I was trying to think, because Kansas has always had so many great teams under Bill Self. They've won 2 national championships. They've had a streak of all those Big 12 regular season titles a row. This, to me, reminds me, from a coaching perspective and wringing out the sponge, of the 2012 season for Bill Self. Now, you have to go deep into the archives for this, but that's what I do. It's what I live for. That's why I love content. I love going deep in the archives. Kansas, after 2011, lost Marcus and Markieff Morris. That Kansas team was built to win the national championship, was a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, lost to VCU and Shaka Smart in the Elite Eight in San Antonio. Lost the Morris twins. It was Tyshawn Taylor, Travis Relaford, Brady Morningstar, Thomas Robinson, Jeff Withey. But Bill Self got that team to the national championship game where it lost to Anthony Davis in Kentucky. This, to me, is a standout coaching job in the same type of feel as what Bill Self did in 2011, 2012. And if this keeps going, and if this guy keeps Kansas peaking, and they'll have another opportunity Saturday at Iowa State, you got to start talking about Bill Self in the mix to be the national coach of the year. Want to touch on something else down the road in the Big 12. And that's what's going on at Kansas State. And Kansas State on CBS Sports Network on Wednesday night had about as embarrassing a performance as you could have, losing to Cincinnati, another team that's nowhere near the NCAA tournament picture. Lost by 29 points, 91-62. Jerome Tang gave a passionate press conference after talking about obviously how embarrassed he was, how disappointed he was. This happened a couple of weeks ago at home against Iowa State. Iowa State's obviously a much better team than Cincinnati, even though Cincinnati beat them. But I'll just say this. I love Jerome Tang. I've known him since he was an assistant coach at Baylor. I think he is obviously a great man. I think he is a great, obviously, ambassador for college basketball. But when you do not get your team to show any resistance, it's something that is falling on the head coach. And this is what I will say, and I'm sure he would agree with it. Jerome Tang took Kansas State on a fairy tale run to the Elite Eight in 2023. He then had a team I felt would have been in the NCAA tournament in his second year if Naquan Tomlin was not lost at the start of the season. Naquan Tomlin was an all Big 12 player. So I think Kansas State would have had 2 NCAA tournament appearances in Jerome Tang's first 2 years if Naquan Tomlin was a part of that second team. Then Kansas State flipped its roster, brought in Coleman Hawkins out of the transfer portal. That didn't work out. Then Kansas State flipped its roster again and brought in a transfer class headlined by PJ Haggerty. That's not working out. I think Kansas State right now is a microcosm of what's going on right now in the transfer portal climate when you do not have high levels of retention and you don't have players back. Now, look, Kansas State is not going to be able to play its way back to the NCAA tournament picture this season unless there is some sort of miracle run in the Big 12 tournament, which I obviously don't see happening. But Kansas State is straddling a fence. And over the next 30 or so days till it plays its last game in Kansas City, Kansas State needs to show more resistance, more pride, and also more accountability moving forward. Because this was a program when I started doing this that had great tradition, great respect, great history. Going from Lon Kruger to Bob Huggins to Frank Martin to Bruce Weber, who took Kansas State, obviously, to multiple Big 12 regular season titles and also a trip to the Elite Eight. This was not Kansas State basketball, what I saw the other night against Cincinnati and what I saw a couple of weeks ago against Iowa State. Look, Jerome Tang's been there 4 years. The first year, he was the national coach of the year. The second year came up just short of the NCAA tournament. They get in with Tomlin. The last 2, it's a great reminder. And I've said this not just about Kansas State, but also about a lot of programs. When you see, and we're all guilty of this, when you see in April and May, certain teams post certain commitments, certain coaches, it could be assistant coaches, whoever, certain people post GIFs about how great a get is or we're back or whatever. And this is not about Kansas State. This is about everybody in the business. Let's take a little bit of caution when we anoint something before we see it happen. This is a perfect analogy right now. We don't get excited about a 5-star meal when somebody's in the kitchen making the sauce. You get excited about it when you start smelling the finished product and thinking about sampling that sauce. So let's get a little bit more caution around what we see in April and May when people are adding players out of the transfer portal. And a perfect example, you can go back to Kansas. Kansas added Hunter Dickinson a couple of years ago from Michigan. Best player in the portal. Was a guy who was an All-American who went in the transfer portal. Kansas then had its worst 2 seasons back-to-back under Bill Self.